There we are. So, looks like Irvin's first building malicious images on your host.
Through Docker images. We kind of talked about this before, how people don't check their Docker, the Docker files that they download and the containers that they create. They just go and build without thinking or any form of checking. And there's like 3 different ways that you can use a Docker that's either pre-configured to be malicious or use a third party or just vanilla. And there's kind of this attack sequence there to get that Docker image to be malicious for you.
But then, of course, it's kind of isolated from the host system. So what do you exactly do with a malicious Docker image once you've got it on?
There's a little script there that kind of shows like what the L file that's downloaded that's already found to be malicious, but it basically becomes your beachhead.
Okay, this one hijacks resources from the host by mining cryptocurrency. I can see how you do that. Basically, it's the same as like being able to plug an unauthorized server onto the network.
Exactly.
So I don't.
But knowing that people are running Docker and they're not checking it.
Yeah, but that would mean that you can't. I don't suppose you could steal data from the host or from the other machines directly. You would just have the ability to add another machine to the network, and then you'd have to find another vulnerability to do that. So that's cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And now I wonder. Now Windows supposedly has Docker containers too now, but I don't think anybody is much using them yet.
Right. I've heard that it's a pain in the butt to turn on.
I tried a little. Yes, I think you really have to have. But when I tried it a couple of years ago, not only did you have to have the latest version of everything, but you had to have a special Microsoft Insider account or something.
Oh, fun.
But I mean, it is coming. Probably in a few years, it'll be ready for prime time. Anyway, so Process Monitor, I saw this happen. Have you tried using it?
Oh yes. So no, I haven't used it yet, but I saw this and I was like, yes, I've been wanting this for so long. So for people that don't know, Procmon is a very useful Windows utility that basically lets you spy on processes to see what they're doing. And there's been ways to do this in Linux, but it's less user friendly. So you would usually have to run you would trace out kernel calls and then you would save it to a file, then search through the file. But what this does is it lets you have a nice GUI, a GUI in the text mode that lets you look at processes, see what they're doing, organize it, sort it, search the results, and it looks like a lot of fun.
So how is this better? How is this better than HTOP? Because it really looks like HTOP.
So what HTOP does? HTOP is only a process monitor. So I know the names are confusing. So HTOP is only looking at like resource usage. What this will do is this will trace kernel calls. So if you're trying to figure out like what program a program touches, you can load this up and then trace down into the nitty-gritty of what the program's actually doing. Not just how many resources it's using, but what files it's using, what networking capabilities is it using, what devices is it touching, etc.
This it reminds me of Resource Monitor on Windows, which is also very good. That lets you see all kinds of stuff, and there is no similar tool for Linux. So obviously this is much better. I was thinking of Sysmon for Linux, and I wasn't very interested, but this is much more like it.
Nope, this is Procmon for Linux.
Oh yeah, okay. I'm glad you pointed it out. All right, and I thought this is amazing. Some Ripple guy who made all this money in cryptocurrency. People are like breaking into cars all over San Francisco. They're breaking in his car and stealing his stuff. And he got so mad, he donated like millions of dollars, and he is installing surveillance cameras all over San Francisco in like 100 blocks now. And what he does is he pays for them, and they are not under the controls of the police. They're on somebody's personal property and under their control. But they record everything, and then if somebody breaks into a car, you can go see. So I mean, I've wanted to do this for a long time at the college. There's like some guy that keeps smashing the glass in the bus stop, and I keep seeing it, and I'm thinking, where could I stick a webcam around here? I could totally catch this guy. And it's like irritating to see, and I never did find a good place to put the webcam or bother doing it, but I've had the feeling of doing the same thing, you know? Years ago, someone was stealing my newspaper, and I did get a webcam and turn it on to see who was stealing my newspaper, you know? Yeah.
I have questions.
Yeah.
First off, what happens if you catch them? They're not going to do anything.
Well, that's of course an issue, but what you can't, sometimes you can give the data to the cops and they'll do something. You can
Yeah, they'll tell you to go get bent.
What was that?
I think you people are cynical about the cops. I don't understand how you can have this attitude. This reminds me.
Well, I'll tell you how. When I had my cars broken into about a month ago, I couldn't even file a police report.
Why is that?
Because first off, they told me to go do it online, and the web form's broken, so you can't submit the stuff to do the police report. So I call, and the woman takes all this information. And then she said, "Oh well, I can't take a report. I'm gonna have to send somebody out in a few hours, or have them call you." And neither of those things ever happened.
Well, that sounds like one might get a bad attitude from things like that. Yeah.
And
Well,
then
anyway.
my other question, well, I'm sure, they had to go find a person of color to harass or something. But my other question is where are these cameras going? Are they going on public property or private property? Or
He gets people who want them. He will pay for it, put it on your house, and then you can see it. Of course, then
interesting.
But now he sees the crews and everything. He said he watched the police drive by, and the criminals drive right up 15 seconds later to smash the windows and steal stuff. They're watching. Oh, the cop went around the corner. Okay. And
if you put one up on your house, you said you could access that feed, right?
Apparently. But now what he says is he makes them really obvious, and he thinks they have a deterrent factor because you can see them. So that might work.
If you put one up on your house, can you see the feeds from all the cameras in the system?
I don't know. That wasn't clear. But neighbors band together and put them on. And the footage is monitored by the neighborhood coalition. So apparently they work it out.
So a number of people can see the cameras.
Yeah, but you get to choose that. So I can see that. You get together with your neighbors and they put 2 cameras up and we'll all look at the feed. And then, then I guess you figure out what to do. He said it's difficult to say how effective they've been reducing crime. But of course, you're correct that it doesn't mean you can go out and shoot them or something. But anyway, it probably gives you a feeling of a little more control about your neighborhood anyway.
I wonder how effective also are the fake cameras.
Right. I would think a fake camera would be almost as good.
Apparently, the fake cameras are so impressive. A person who there was an April Fool's joke a while ago, where I put a bunch of those fake cameras in the bathroom and I pointed at the toilet. And
I'm not sure that's a good idea.
And apparently someone is still crying about that to this day.
must have forgotten to put the "this is not a camera" sticker on them.
I've seen them at like hacking conferences. They have signs up in the bathroom saying distribute things like that.
Yeah.
I did that. One time I was at a place and the landlord just sent this memo around saying, we are going to spray the place for bugs on this day. You have to make sure all your food is in the refrigerator and get your utensils out of the way and put away anything important. And if you're sensitive, you ought to leave for a week. So I wrote a sign that said, we are going to pump all the air out of your house next week. The temperature will fall to absolute 0 and everyone will die. Thank you for your cooperation. And I put it up. And then everyone got mad and offended, and the landlord said it was cruel hoax and irresponsible. And I'm like, I thought it was a good joke, but
I thought it was good.
No sense. Some people just have no sense of humor.
Yeah, that was just what I thought. Anyway, so this is pretty good. You leak about the videos of you hacking. That's good.
This is awesome. So basically, these Iranian hackers accidentally uploaded like 40 gigs of what were essentially instructional training videos for junior hackers on how to compromise accounts and what to do with them. So pretty amazing. Yeah, right. Exactly. That's what I was thinking. I haven't seen them yet, but I would really like to.
Yeah, we might add them to our classes. Look, here's official training videos.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So
a few years ago, there was a guy called School for Lulz that was posting training videos. And I contacted him and he said, well, and I said, sure, we're in the same business. And he got really, went to DEF CON and he was there bragging about his attacks, but he decided that I was like all lame and swear and stuff, which you could say. But anyway, in general, we are kind of teaching the same stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and it could be pretty good info. I mean, they were apparently pretty adept at compromising these accounts. They got Gmail in like 4 minutes and Yahoo in like 3 minutes, I think. So
right?
yeah, I mean, I would take their correspondence APT course.
Yeah, sure. That would be great. Yeah, neat. They should. Yeah, have a different attitude about crime. Other people are like afraid of this crime, and I just find it interesting. Well, how did they do that?
I wonder if that kind of teaching pays more.
In my experience, those people are always absolutely broke. Well, the guys that hacked all the Twitter accounts, they got like $100,000, but too many requests. Neat. So this article about the internet going down is down.
Oh, very good.
That's very meta. Oh, there it came. Okay,
Oh, there it is.
but that was good meta. Okay.
Right.
So
So yesterday the Cloudflare, there was a router in the Cloudflare system who was directing the wrong way and causing things to go out. My camps were directly affected. The good thing is I'm multi-cloud, so the CTF was not affected, but the Discord was. And there was a whole bunch of other services that were also affected yesterday. But yeah, that was fun. It did come back after like 20 minutes ish.
yeah,
But that was a fun moment of everybody freaking out and Twitter all ablaze of people messaging Discord and Cloudflare to get stuff fixed.
mm-hmm.
I bet your phone really blew up over that one.
Oh yeah, it did.
Yeah, I got this. I was on the VPN at the time, and so my housemate messaged me, and she's like, "Something's wrong with our internet connection," and because I'm on the VPN and not using our local DNS for anything, it was fine. I'm like, no, our internet's fine. Don't worry about it. And she goes, "It's still down." 15 minutes later, and like, okay, I'll take a look. Let's see what's going on. And I was like, sure enough, yeah, our DNS server was just not responding, and of course it was using only Cloudflare stuff.
Yeah.
And so the whole, and so I explained to her, well, it's not our internet that's down, it's the internet that's down. And she's like, wait, why, what's Cloudflare? What's going on? Why are we using Cloudflare? It was just such a confusing idea that the internet itself could have issues.
An incredible number of people do not understand Cloudflare.
Yep.
Yeah. But I think it just means most people don't really understand how the internet works, which I guess is understandable. Anyway, one great thing about Cloudflare I've always loved is they're always honest about this. They always immediately say it was our fault. Here's what went wrong. Here's how we fixed it. Very few people have the guts to do that. They'll spend a month trying to pretend it was somebody else's fault or something.
Yeah.
And that makes me quickly. Yeah, that makes me want to use them more.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, I'm not switching off. I have now a backup DNS just in case now, but I'm not switching off Cloudflare. They're amazing.
Right.
No, I mean, Cloudflare has gone down a few times and they've had very good responses, and you can't ask for more than that. Everything goes down. Nobody's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm very impressed with Cloudflare. Anyway, so Windows Server containers are open. Really?
Yes. So here's a fun flaw. Windows Server containers. So on Windows, you can create a link that's apparently somewhat undocumented, a symbolic link that will link to the root file system of the host.
That's the way Docker was in like the first beta version.
Yes.
You just totally get root on the host. So they made the same mistake.
They made the exact same mistake. And you can actually create a program within the Docker container to create those links.
Oh, yeah.
And
This
just,
looks like fun.
Have you tried
just
this yet?
jump out. Yeah, just you
you
gain TCP privileges and
you could put
go
a
at it.
DNS server in there and combine things. But anyway.
Yeah. Works on Azure, works on your local hosts. Just
When
make a
Azure
symbolic link
came
and get out.
I immediately jumped on it and went on there and tried doing IPv6 attacks, and they had turned off IPv6. And I was thinking, man, I was going to take down Azure, but no.
This looks like fun.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it does. Neat. That should be good. And so anyway, we were all kind of worried about instructions because our new chancellor apparently was thinking about face-to-face classes, and they really haven't made it clear to us yet whether we're going face-to-face or not. But I think Newsom has finally taken action. He has said, forget it, nothing but virtual instruction in most of California, including San Francisco. Now, his statement, I think, does not directly apply to the colleges, but I think it means it will set the standard and the colleges will be virtual only, which is certainly what I want. I'm not in a hurry to get in a classroom full of students coughing right now, personally.
I don't understand the push. I think it's totally insane. The push to go back to face.
Well, this has been the federal response has been Trump just wants to pretend everything is fine because he doesn't care if people die. He only cares about the stock market. And what's surprising is anybody will go along with that. You would think that when your leader is like pushing you off a cliff with a pitchfork, you'll fall to your death, you would rebel. But anyway, and for some reason, Newsom did the same thing. I think there's a lot of pressure. I think the same people that won't wear masks are yelling at the government saying, oh, open up the cafes and my store and everything. And why am I going broke because of your fake virus thing? And that pressure affects the government leaders.
You know, to be fair, I will say that I think that a lot of, I think that some instructors may be really phoning it in and not really doing a great job with remote instruction, but those are the same instructors that are phoning it in the classroom anyway, is my position. So, I mean, it's not really much of a net difference, I don't think.
Yeah, I think the real pressure is the parents want to go back to work, so want to get the kids out of the house. I think that's the huge pressure.
Yeah.
But
it doesn't really make sense in terms of colleges. I mean, they're pressuring colleges in the same way, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I think that's I know that they want to make their money and all that, but
yeah. You know, if I had a teenager, I would just say, take a gap year, just take a year off. I think rushing into college and pretending that every year of college is like super important is not really true. This is something Scott Galloway said. He said, you know, most kids that go to college aren't really mature enough to get the most out of it anyway. It would be good if they would take a year off and come back a little older and wiser.
Yep.
Yes. I mean, I wanted to take one and my parents said no. And I ended up like dropping out of college and it taking me like 20 years to go back. So
yeah, I mean, I see there's a bunch of people there that are just really not mature enough. And if they could like go get a job for a while or do something else for a while and come back when they're in a better mood for it, it would probably be better.
And I totally wasn't at that age, you know, and I think that's true of a lot of students.
And also, I'd say, if you're not highly motivated, then you're probably going to get nothing out of this remote instruction. I mean,
I also think it's kind of insane that we expect kids to choose what they want what they want their education to be, what they want their career to be when they're like 16, 17, 18 years old. That's a little nuts.
Well, that used to be that way, you know, 100 years ago, where you would learn like a mechanical trade, like being a bricklayer, and then you would really do it forever, but not in the modern world where you're going to have to be learning forever and everything will change underneath you. So whatever you're doing in 5 years, you'll be doing something totally different.
Yeah, but I don't think the ethos has caught up with that reality.
Yeah. Well, that's, you know, education is sort of like religion. Its whole point is to hold to an ancient tradition. And therefore, it's sort of by definition very badly out of date.
Wait, do you mean that my Latin degree is not going to be useful?
It's just as useful as it ever was. And by the way, you know, I must say, to be fair, my learning algebra and calculus and quantum mechanics is probably not that different than learning Latin. It doesn't have a direct application to my daily life. And yet I feel like it organized my mind and I value it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I did English. My sister did Latin. And, you know, it's just, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was 18, so I'm like, English is just kind of a nice, neutral, you know, thing to learn. And you can use it in anything. So I'll just learn that and then grift around for a while I figure myself out. And then finally I stumbled into your classes, Sam, and now
you've been ruined.
Now I've been ruined, yes.
Led you into a life of crime.
Yeah, same. Same. I mean, just ruining lives left and right, Sam.
That's right. It's good to have a purpose.
Leaving a swath of destruction throughout the city.
That's it. I understand my mission, you know. Well, you know, I realize it's been the same. My dad taught biochemistry, and so on his final exam, the students project was to refine morphine into heroin. And my 10 generations back, my family was all like outlaws and crooks and mystics and witches.
Now here you are.
Yeah.
Now here you are turning good innocent students into an army of lethal hackers.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. We're always drawn to like the disreputable and forbidden. That's where I belong. Anyway, there's no resisting it. So that's why I said I was just doing, before we started, I was talking about my assembly language. I've reached this point in developing my assembly language, CTF, where all the tutorials are wrong. All the example code won't even run. And I said, now I know I'm on familiar ground. This is where I belong. When I'm digging through the trash and I get to the part where nobody else can figure it out either, that's where I belong. You know?
Very good.
Because that means I can get away with my typical sloppy work. People will be grateful because I take stuff that makes no sense at all and I make it up to 90% good. That's all I can do. Polishing it, making it beautiful is not my thing. Anyway, so, all right. So then we've got, how they got in Twitter. Boy, this was pretty exciting.
That was
So everybody, you know, the InfoSec Twitter especially freaked out this week, but all of Twitter freaked out because essentially all the verified, the blue check mark accounts were pitching a pretty basic crypto scam this week, like, you know, send us $10 in Bitcoin or 10 Bitcoins and we'll send you back 20 or something like that. And they were freaking out. We don't know what's going on, et cetera, et cetera. Well, it turned out it was an insider threat. They were able to get an employee to give them access to one of their internal tools, their admin panel tools, to get into the accounts. So,
and apparently they couldn't get in Donald Trump's account because there is a special second layer authentication on that.
I thought that was very interesting. So that was the first thing that I looked for, actually, because I was like, okay, first off, like, how would you know if it got hacked? Because, you know, maybe, they're going to start spelling things properly and, making reasonable statements about the country.
I wanted to check. So I looked at his account and he had just published something in Arabic. And I said, he must have been hacked. And he really did tweet in Arabic. I translated it in something like, you know, you guys should all make America great again or something. But he really did tweet something in Arabic for the first time ever. Like,
that's,
I mean, but he likes the Saudi Arabians.
Yeah.
You know, as long as they stay in their country.
But I didn't expect to see that out of Trump.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and the UAE, like, that fits that, you know, I can see how he would get along really well with the Emiratis.
Yeah, when I translated the message, it was pretty obviously genuine. It wasn't like a scam or something, but my first thought is he did get hacked. Anyway, but then they said the reason is because about a year ago, a Twitter employee disabled Trump's account. And they had to fire that employee. They did for like a few hours. They disabled Trump's account. And so in response to that event, they put a control so that tech support people cannot mess with Trump's account. There's like but not anybody else, just his, because they got in so much trouble for disabling his account without a good reason.
Oh, I wondered if they put it on anybody else's internally.
Not yet, but one proposal is obviously to implement something like that for all the blue check mark accounts. That would seem like the thing to do.
Sure. But it made me wonder if it was on like any other ones, like Obama's, maybe, that they
not Obama. Obama got hacked. In fact,
or not Obama, but you know, anybody else.
Yeah, but realistically, I mean, this is why another thing a lot of people have said is that Trump should not be issuing official government statements from Twitter anyway. This is very much like Hillary and Sarah Palin using third-party email servers. You're not supposed to use unofficial channels for official communications for this reason. They're not secure enough.
Yeah, what could go wrong? And it makes you wonder what his DMs are like on Twitter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I know Sarah Palin used Yahoo email for official things and then she got hacked and stuff. It's like, you know, it's actually technically illegal to do that. You have to use the official channel for official government things because then not only is it secured, it's also archived for the presidential library and stuff. So it's like, that's why, you know, they got so mad at Hillary. it's really unprofessional and probably illegal to be doing government business on unofficial accounts.
But I mean, I don't know, Putin's got an account, and I noticed they didn't mention that in all of this. So
Yeah, well, they didn't use it.
yeah, makes you wonder what's going on under the hood.
Well, when I read this, what these people really cared about was the OG accounts, the single letter accounts. It's all just
Right.
status symbol. They're not like serious criminals. They just wanted to like show off that they can hack into things.
Well, and of course, because of this now, this is feeding a new batch of right-wing conspiracy theories, because now what they're doing is circulating screenshots of the admin panel that show like the account tags where they're like, okay, it's inactive or protected, or they're on the search blacklist or whatever. So now what they're doing is circulating the screenshot and saying like, oh, well, they're just using it to silence the conservatives. So,
Yeah. And one of my friends actually called me with this intricate conspiracy theory that's going around, how it has to do with like the cabal of banking and the Trump hackers did it, and this is all part of it. They immediately, anything that stirs people up will stir up the schizophrenics, and they will make
Trump hackers, as in hackers that are directed by Trump, or hackers that are against Trump.
No, one's directed by Trump, because an article came out yesterday talking about how Trump approved offensive hacking operations without having to get approval from the government. They can just hack people like crazy about 2 years ago, and they've been doing a lot of offensive. So since it came out in the news the same day, they've tied them together.
Okay.
And decided it has to do, and they invented the virus and all this stuff. They tie it all together.
Wait, what?
Oh, they make a conspiracy theory.
Hackers working for Trump invented the virus?
It was all in there, sort of mixed together in a schizophrenic stew. Like there was a guy, when I was in Berkeley, there was a guy that would drive around his van, and he had this leaflet he would hand out saying that Stephen King killed John Lennon in a conspiracy with some other celebrity, I think Bill Gates.
That guy is totally still around.
Yeah.
Except now he just uses a megaphone.
Yeah, but there's a bunch of stuff, especially in this alt-right stuff, that is like that. It's the currency system, the banks, the bitcoins, the military strikes, the new airplane, the internet crash, and the coronavirus is all part of this grand conspiracy.
Yeah, it's like Alex Jones. I mean, it gets, and you'd think that this stuff would be so outlandish, because it reminds me of the National Enquirer. The tabloid that used to be on newsstands that would say like, aliens have landed, and they brought like Elvis with them, who's been living on Mars for the last 15 years or whatever.
It was always Elvis.
Yeah, but you would think that this stuff at a certain point would be so outlandish that people wouldn't buy in, but they don't. Seems to be a pretty good base of people that believe it.
Well, it is a branch. This whole conspiracy thing and the whole alt-right thing is really a branch of science fiction that happens to get an awful lot of fans, and a lot of people like to imagine it could be true. It's a form of fictional narrative that stirs people up, and they carefully mix together elements that will please the people. This is basically what Trump's rallies are. You make up a series of lies that people emotionally want to hear, and you manipulate their emotions with it.
I think that there's some element also of the world being so insane right now that they look for explanations to what's causing this level of craziness. And, sometimes that leads to a lot of faulty assumptions, or, that search for meaning will lead them to stuff like that, where they're like, okay, well, the world is so crazy, it must have a crazy explanation. I guess these people have done the research and figured it all out.
Yeah, but I think it always has been this crazy. It's in the autobiography of Benjamin Franklin. He talked about how when he was a child, his father went to like these tent revivals, go through America. This guy would come into town with like a carriage, and he would put up a tent, and he would go up and preach about people. And the two farmers in this Pennsylvania town. One of them went to this thing, and he would then tell them, you have to donate money to the glory of God. And everybody would give him money. And this one guy gave him all the money. And then he asked his neighbor, I want to borrow money from you. And he said, Josiah, you know I respect you, and I would loan you money at any time. But it is my opinion that you are currently under some strange agitation that will not persist. And I don't think that I should loan you money at this point. If you come back tomorrow and ask for money, but that preacher has somehow excited in you an unhealthy agitation where you, and you know, it's always been there. Some people, like Trump, have this ability to beam madness into people's minds and make them follow you into this crazy place.
I'm envisioning a town crier in New England in the late 1700s saying that the redcoats are lizard people or something.
And they did. They said they were witches or something, and they worshiped the devil. When the Crusades were this, they would take a bunch of people that are like on the farm and say, what you people need to do is walk off the farm and go invade another country because of Jesus and go die there. And they would do it. And people were like, wait, why is anyone doing this? This doesn't make any sense. But that didn't matter. They'd whip up enthusiasm and everybody would rush off to do it. It's just like human psyche. It's something to do with us being herd animals. People want to just have a leader and follow the leader and stop thinking. They're much more comfortable doing that. You can seduce them with that. Anyway, and that's what social engineering is. Anyway, it's a very important topic to understand. Anyway, so Signal. Yeah, everyone freaked out about Signal, and I didn't understand what the problem is.
So it's taking your contacts and basically settings that you've made and storing it on their cloud server behind a pin. That's the whole freak out.
So it's like the Apple thing where it stores your Apple, whatever they call it, stores Apple iCloud.
Yeah,
Well,
but only for a few things like anything that you've called and contacts, anybody you've blocked, like those preferences would all get backed up to Signal's servers and backed by a pin.
And does Signal have the key? Like if they get a court order, can they hand over the data or not?
Supposedly no. But just backing stuff up to their server and putting it behind a pin, that was what made everybody go nuts.
Well, now the original point of this was that if you lose your phone, you can restore your data on the new phone. Is that why they're doing it?
Exactly. That is the point.
Yeah.
So what would stop someone if they got into the server? What would stop them from downloading Irvin's data and just trying, 9,999 pins
to figure it out? Because it is a 4-digit pin, like always.
Yeah.
Well, they have an SGH enclave apparently, but it can't stand up to a serious attacker. Well, that's an interesting issue. I mean, it seems like you could totally encrypt it so nobody could get in. And if anybody was going to do that, it would be Moxie. So I don't know. Everyone's freaking out, but I would say I'd like to know how it works first, because I think that could be done. For example, Mega encrypts your data so they really can't get it. The key is only on your computer, and they can't open it to see that it's like pirated content, so they're not responsible. I mean, you can totally have cloud data that nobody can get in.
Right.
So, I mean, and if anybody would know how to do it, it would be Moxie.
Right.
So
Mega is the key a 4-digit pin?
No, it's created in your browser. Your browser makes this thing and you save it someplace. It's, of course, a long cryptographic key.
Right. So I think if it was a long cryptographic key for Signal, there wouldn't be such a hoopla over it. But because it's just behind a 4-digit pin, like Kaitlyn's example, it probably would be fast.
Well, then all you have to do is make it a 6 or 8-digit pin, and you have to make it automatically delete after 10 wrong guesses. Apple solved this decades ago.
How if you get the raw data, Irvin's data.dat,
yeah.
How do you make it automatically delete itself?
Well, I don't know. That's a thought. But I mean, there should be a way to do it. For example, you could include like a cookie from the machine that you don't have, or the IP address or something. I mean, there are ways to make it tougher. And I just would expect, I'd like to see how they did it. We'll see what happens.
Right.
I'm
I don't know if it's implemented yet,
Yeah.
and I don't know if there's also a way to opt out.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anyway,
But
Moxie's been explaining it, and I'll let those big guys fight it out. But I certainly wouldn't jump immediately to condemn it.
right.
Yeah. Anyway, so digital disruption will hurt democracy.
Yeah, so we've talked about this a lot before, and this just goes into deep depth on the subject. So this is actually a 10-page article, and normally I don't like it when articles split up on pages, but each one of these pages is a full one page in and of itself. I mean, you could read this all day, but basically it's going into all the issues and possible solutions of the harm that social media could be doing to our democracy. And they go through a bunch of themes. So like one of the themes is the fact that corporate and government agendas, which have a lot of sway over these social media companies, do not serve democratic goals and outcomes. Right? They serve the people in power. There's the problem of digitally networked surveillance capitalism creating an undemocratic class system. Right? So you have people with more voice than others. You have a lack of digital fluency and apathy. So it caters to the ill-informed, and there's then a push to keep these people influent, and not able to understand the what's going on social media. Much like the Fox News viewers who really think it's fair and balanced. The actual information wars, the technology and weaponized, targets where you have a specific operation, you're trying to use social media to make it happen. Much like we saw in the last election, we have tech-borne reality distortion. Things where you have politicians, people saying, "Oh, but if you put on masks, it's going to make you unable to get enough oxygen." Yeah. We've seen that a lot. Weakening of journalism, we've saw that as well.
Yeah, a lot of people get their news from social media now.
Yeah, the speed and scope of impact of these technologies and manipulations is just so fast that how do you counter it when a new technique comes up? I mean, yeah, and so those are the major themes. Like I said, this is a very long article, and one of the things they talked about that I thought was really, really important that we don't really discuss enough is that one person brought up this idea that our brains just may not be capable of dealing with the emerging technologies of manipulation.
Yes, absolutely.
So we talked about, we just need to educate people and let people know, but what if our brains really can't stand up to the level of technology and sophistication used in manipulating people for, specific agendas?
Especially when these technologies are specifically designed to play on emotion and keep you sucked in for as long as possible.
Exactly.
Well, I think we have to be careful consumers. I mean, I discarded my television 20 years ago, and it had the desired effect. I got a lot more done, and I became completely out of touch with a whole lot of what goes on around me, and I really don't care. But I also don't consume most of what's on the internet. I mean, like everyone's always angry about their Twitter because they get involved in the bickering, and I just ignore that. And it's so, I think you do have to be careful how you use this stuff. And most people who just turn it on and use it as default probably do consume primarily unhealthy stuff.
Yeah. I got out of Facebook after a year or two of trying it out. I mean, it was just not helpful. Yeah.
I gave that up too, and I gave up LinkedIn. And so now I realize I'm generally a proponent of the value of the internet, but I realize I do not consume it the average way. I really do block out like 90% of it that I can tell is garbage. And I guess if you're consuming that stuff, you'd have a much more negative reaction.
Yeah, I do say that I am surprisingly liking Twitter, but I will say that I do stay out of all the drama. I don't pay attention to that. It's just a way of keeping in contact with, InfoSec people and talking about InfoSec and InfoSec adjacent things, and that's it. Nothing else.
Right. I think being disconnected from others is definitely interesting. Like you're only connected to the people that you're talking to.
Right.
You're actively talking to. Everybody else, like all your high school friends or college friends, like everybody else is peripheral is not in your purview at all.
Right.
Well, that's who you'd find if you went on Facebook. And I don't want to do that, but that's what I remember a few years ago, they said, Twitter is the people you want to know, and Facebook is the people you used to know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Though I think that there can be an issue with that too, where in every, when people use these services and they really do engage in like the default way, they're essentially getting confirmation bias through echo chamber all day, every day. And I think that it is a really effective way to radicalize people.
That's what the Rabbit Hole podcast is about. And I know at least 2 people older than me who I've watched do this. They become insane because they watch YouTube, and it gradually makes them more and more crazy until they've drifted off into a bizarre mindset that you can't even talk to them anymore.
Yeah, I think it's especially dangerous for retirees who might not have as much going on, or people, especially now too, people that are unemployed and just like stuck at home, or
Yeah, well, it's basically the same as like you have an American supermarket full of all this stuff, so people could have any kind of food they want, but some of them will buy the wrong stuff and get sick because they choose to buy the wrong stuff. The same thing on the internet. I mean, you can do anything you want, but you might indulge in something unhealthy.
Right. And I don't want to make it sound like it's their fault for getting radicalized, because as we were just saying, that our brains just may not be capable of dealing with this. And I think once again, when we're talking about the supermarket, our brains just aren't set to deal with the fact that we have such an abundance of food. Yep. Normally in the wild, you're starving, and if you see a candy bar, you're like, oh, jackpot. Yeah.
Right.
Now that we're not starving, we still see a candy bar and go, jackpot. It's like.
Right. And, to take that analogy a step further, because it's a really good one, it's like McDonald's. All that food is calibrated specifically with levels of fat, salt, and sugar that will appeal to your reptile brain and get you like hooked on it, just the same way that that social media works in terms of getting you that dopamine hit, that rage hit, that also that feeling of belonging, like when you're disconnected from the rest of society, or feeling very disenfranchised. That is specifically engineered to give you these feelings of like inclusion and righteousness and all these other kind of things that can be pretty dangerous.
Well, but this is the American way. I mean, the European solution would be to have like government controls and everybody go to the official channel and everybody cooperate. But that's never going to happen in America. We're all like rugged individuals in freedom here. So I think the only solution would be to have some new, even more exciting product that is less harmful.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't necessarily agree with the other way either, which is that everyone should subscribe to the official government-sponsored, sanctioned propaganda channel either, So
well, that's what the right and the left are talking about now, is to like restrict social media and place limits on them and put them under control. But I don't think that's what any American's really going to be satisfied by.
Well,
when I was a kid, they had the comic book code, and they had all these rules you had to obey in comic books. And you could have like the Facebook code where you must not post anything that breaks the rules. And I don't think we would be happy with that.
I would be happy with that. I think that's a great idea, to have an independent channel that's governed with kind of universally agreed upon rules.
Yeah, but the comic book code was no witchcraft or magic will ever lead to any good results. And then they have, you never shoot anybody with a gun in a cartoon.
But we're not.
No gay, no LGBT relationships, stuff like that.
We're not talking about a moral panic, though. We're talking about how to make sure that when people get news, that it can be labeled as legitimate or that it's not from a legitimate source, stuff like that.
Of course, but 30% of Americans now have an idea of what truth is that is completely crazy, and they will feel discriminated if you mark their stuff false. So
right.
That's okay. I'm okay with that.
Well, that's not democracy. That's why I think
that is democracy.
Well, it's
absolutely democracy. We come together, we create rules in Congress, and we come up with.
But we never came together. You skipped step one. We're not together. Not at all.
We're not, but you said 30% of the people have a different idea of truth. That means 70% agree that.
No, it doesn't. And the American system is not. What happens is 70% believe the other thing, but they don't really care. The 30% are really, really determined to have it their way. And the American system is specifically designed to prevent the oppression of a minority by the majority.
Yeah, we're not oppressing people if they believe fake news. I mean, come on.
They feel oppressed.
I know they do, and I'm sure their feelings are very genuine, and I respect their feelings, but it's not the same.
It's essentially freedom of religion. It's as if like the American system we have a value here where we value individual freedom to be stupid more than we value cooperating with the common good. That's what makes America special. I mean, I don't think we can change it.
And I think we can change it, but it'll take time and a big culture shift.
Well, we're living through a very interesting cultural period.
I mean, there is too the fact that there are a lot of people who have a big vested interest in keeping people stupid. I mean,
there always have been.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't see that changing because there are massive incentives for those people to keep a large portion of the population stupid.
Well, this has happened before, like in the Roaring '20s and stuff. We go through periods of mania in America where everybody starts doing something stupid to an extent to where the whole system sort of collapses, and then we have to like rebuild order again. So, it's a cycle.
Well, we'll get through it, but I'm under the impression that it's important to end the cycle.
Well, it will definitely come to an end, and we can each contribute to various parts of it. Mm-hmm. But it's not the end of the world. However, it's a shame that so many of us have to die with this virus over it. That puts the stakes a bit higher.
I do think it's different than any other time in history in that now with the advent of the internet and these social media platforms, we are more vulnerable to both domestic and foreign manipulation than ever before.
Yeah.
There is a lot of money going into, and a lot more research that have gone into this. So it's to go back to Sam's example. I mean, sure, someone in the 1920s might have a handgun, or did they even have machine guns back then? I don't know.
Yeah.
But going up against like a modern army, like they'd just be crushed.
Yeah, that's true. We do have a new form of communication, and that was the point. The original hope of the internet is it would end all bigotry and all racial borders and all cultural differences because everybody could talk to everybody and all mixed together. And that hasn't happened as quickly or as cleanly as we had anticipated.
Well, it's not cleanly, but I do think it's happening. I really do believe that a lot of voices are being amplified on the internet. But the thing is, it's amplifying everybody's voices. So we can see the racists. Before the internet, the racists hid away, and people thought, oh, it's not a real problem because we don't see it. Now we can see it, and we can all agree, or those of us who aren't terrible people can all agree that's wrong. And the people who have historically have had their voices diminished can go on the internet and have their voices raised. So it's not a clean process, but I do think overall, I think that the internet has been really good in that respect.
Yeah, and I think this is the natural process of improvement. We go through a period of chaos during the transition. It's like when they integrated the schools and the suburbs. At first, people freak out more, and then, they get over that, and then they find out it's okay. Anyway, we're living through exciting times.
Certainly are.
And so
that looks like a really good article. I'm going to read it.
Yeah. So the Chinese are apparently, I don't know if this is more lies from the Bitcoin enthusiasts. Apparently, China is going to go all in with Bitcoin for the government. They claim they're only using it for like 10 purposes on blockchains. I don't know any actual use of blockchains yet.
No, the blockchain is perfect for the government. It's going to eliminate all deadlocks in the government. It's going to make sure that all the laws are just, and it's going to protect all the people within China.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Apparently they are going to use it in China, or else this is all just fake news from somebody that wants to sell you Bitcoins. I don't know which, but they have declared a plan to like blockchain up the government. There's a lot of people throwing a lot of money in this blockchain with apparent complete disregard for the fact that it doesn't do anything.
Well, except end wars, which is good.
Which wars has it ended exactly?
Well, it's gonna end. It's gonna end any potential wars between the United States and China if they use the blockchain.
This is what John McAfee said. He had a video. He said the reason why people have wars is because they misunderstand each other. What they need is a way to communicate where everyone can have perfect comprehension, and that's the blockchain. The blockchain will end wars. So if that makes sense to you, then you can vote for John McAfee, but I'm not really understanding it.
Is he running?
I'm not so much. He got busted for tax avoidance. He hasn't paid any taxes on all his cryptocurrency.
Is he still running from the feds?
He's hiding in Antigua or someplace, but he's still posting demented videos and stuff,
Situation normal.
Yeah. That's why I thought Paper Ghost had the best thing. He said, if John McAfee did not exist, we would have to invent him. He serves a purpose in the world. Anyway.
That's definitely a truth is stranger than fiction type scenario, I think.
Before him, it was Hunter Thompson. You always have this wild man out there to laugh at. It's an important role in society. So the CIA, what's the CIA doing now? Oh yeah, this is the Trump approval to do yeah.
So the reason I put these two together, which I thought was interesting, is there are some connections between this story and the second story, which is that the EU decided that Privacy Shield, which was the whole like transatlantic data protection program that was intended to be in compliance with GDPR, essentially, turns out it wasn't working so hot because they realized that once this data left the EU at servers that were based in the EU, there was no control over anything, and that our federal government could just go ahead and grab any of that at any time for these various covert investigations and cyber ops and stuff. So I can kind of understand why they might think this.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why they gave them an exception to use American services and another one, and they finally took it down. I think America is finally being pressured by the Europeans into having some privacy rules, is what's happening.
Right. And I mean, they're like, wait a minute, if you guys are doing these, like unsupervised secret cyber war ops with the approval of your president, we have a problem with this, and maybe we don't want all of our citizens' data subject to these covert ops.
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens. Now, this might actually do it. That's why I thought it was funny. I mean, Facebook totally ignored everybody saying you should do something about the Nazis until they got the advertisers to boycott it. And the next day they're like, oh, we're going to take this stuff off, which they're not going to do, but they got their attention. And this is why, we complain about privacy here, but when the banks refuse to do business with us, then I think someone will notice and pay attention.
Yeah. And I mean, it's almost like we've surpassed, in relation to the last thing we were talking about, it's almost like we've passed the point where we're trying to link up the whole world. Now we're trying to essentially firewall ourselves off in each little country and, build up our own set of services, at least in terms of the EU and Saudis are doing it. I think Ireland, UK, it may be. I haven't looked into what UK is doing with that after Brexit, but I would imagine that they're going to put some controls in place. So,
well, again, in that same spirit, it's occurring to me that we haven't had a world war in quite a while now, and I wonder if all this protest and screaming and blaming and everything is the replacement for a war. In a way, maybe the internet has made it so we understand each other better, and now we don't have to have a world war to resolve our differences. We'll see.
Well, the idea of having a world war has been kind of infeasible ever since the invention of the atomic bomb. And so as much as because it's just too expensive, you can't go into this all-out, world war when both sides have nuclear bombs.
In 2015, this is what Trump said. We've got the bombs. Why don't we use them? I mean,
well, we're using them now, but I think that
did we nuke somebody?
well, I mean in terms of terms of cyber warfare, like that's what this other article is about, where you know, Trump just authorized them to go forth and hack essentially, and
Well, that beats the hell out of using the bombs.
well, theoretically yes, but you know, one of the quotes that stood out to the story was from one of the CIA officials, who's like, you know, because of this, essentially we're basically turning into WikiLeaks, where we're you know, using these secure communications on the dark web with dissidents, and you know, hacking their stuff, and then doing data dumps and stuff like that, which is, I mean, on one hand, yeah, I get needing to fight fire with fire. On the other hand, the lack of supervision concerns me.
Yeah, well, I'm glad to see people switching to less violent ways of like bickering. So
that's a good point.
Yeah.
But the other thing to remember is that sometimes these can lead to violence. These operations can lead to actual physical violence.
oh yeah. Well, yep. Anyway, there's lots of exciting news. Any more comments?
Nope, it was not a slow news week, that's for sure.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Yeah.